Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. I am very excited to invite an old friend. Oh, not old, right? Kind of. Derek, welcome back to the studio.
Hey, thank you, Karen, very much for having me.
And I always have to give a shout out to Joe Pose.
Yes, PMO Joe.
PMO Joe with the PMO Squad and his, I'm going to call it an award-winning show right here at Phoenix Business Radio, the Project Management Office Hours. Derek, you're part of his team.
Absolutely. Director of Sales and Business Development. Joe's a mentor and the key leader in the community, in the PM community, and excited to represent him and the team.
And I invited you back because you are a great referral source for me and for Phoenix Business Radio. He's always like, hey, you got to meet so-and-so. So today, our so-and-so is Jason Prentice. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Karen.
Very excited to have you here. And Jason is the COO for Outcomes COO. Tell us a little bit about your company and who you are. And we've got an hour, so, when I say a little bit, just drag on.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, my name's Jason Prentice. I actually earlier in my career was a project manager, so I have a special place in my heart for all the stuff that Joe and Derek do, and every other project manager out there, in fact. And as I started to, grow up and graduate through that, I quickly got into the more organizational and operational side of the business, which is sort of a slightly higher version of project management. My career progressed through that, and I had several great roles here in the Valley in Phoenix. And then I started to notice there was a niche around smaller businesses that really could use the help of an operational expert, but oftentimes didn't have the resources to really make that happen. So as the world's been changing lately, I saw an opportunity to go into a fractional business where I could give fractions of myself, and over time we're going to grow and have other operational executives as well, to small businesses so that they can experience that and help them grow. I've really gravitated toward folks or companies that use EOS because they have they're pretty ambitious, and it's really nice to go in and know that they have a plan and they're just looking for someone to help them execute it. So what we're up to is just basically being able to give those small companies a fraction of our time to help them get oriented in the right direction. And it's really working out really wonderfully. It's been really a great opportunity to help. I often get told, like, wow, I love the way that you guys lead. I can never figure out how that actually happens. And now I see it in action, So it's pretty exciting to be able to do that. And it gives those owners an opportunity to get a little bit more autonomy and get, operate on their business instead of in their business. And then it gives me an opportunity to help grow their team and develop the next wave of leaders within those small companies.
So much in that introduction. I'm chomping at the bit to get into the meat of it. So prior to owning Phoenix Business Radio, which, by the way, I celebrated with you guys. It's been 4 years next week, which is crazy to me. I co-owned a company called $99 Social, and our goal was to build it fairly rapidly so that we could sell it. We were not shy about that. So I was brought in as the COO, and within a year and a half of me being there, we were able to do it. It was lucrative, great opportunity. We had thought maybe it might be 3 or 4 years. But now I own my own business and it's just me. I get stuck in the weeds of stuff, right? Sure. And I think to myself, I know a better way to do this. I know that there are teammates that I can bring on board, and there's ways in which to create projects that I can manage and track and see the success. But to your point, when we're doing it all ourselves, or we have a small team and we don't have somebody else supporting us in the learning, it's often a lot to handle.
Yeah, it takes a team. And Jason kind of talked about it earlier. It's that, if you're stuck in kind of this loop where you're not getting the revenue out of your business that you need, and you're not reaching some of those goals, and you're not able to deliver on those projects, those critical projects, right, that come up, you have to ask the question, why? Is it part of the strategy? Is it the delivery? And so when Jason and I met, it really was a match made in heaven to say, look, we've got this great strategy. We know there's projects. Let's bring in somebody from the PMO squad that can help
provide support for delivering those projects, right? And so, it takes a team. And both Jason and I have coaching backgrounds, and so we like to put teams together that are successful.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about the coaching background because it has something to do with teams, but a different kind of team from what we're talking about here in the business world. So either one of you, we talked a little bit about it before we went on air, but share with our listeners, how do you two connect with the coaching aspect?
I'm a hockey coach. I've been coaching for about 6 or 7 years. I coach a lot of youth athletes, but I've also taken a lot of time to go through the rigorous training that USA Hockey has. It's professional trained with other previous, Stanley Cup winners, Olympians, neuroscientists, and all sorts of really great people that are studying not just like how to write a practice plan or how to get, two kids that don't have a great attitude lined up or something like that. It's a lot deeper than that. And as I go through these trainings, I started to realize, wow, like a lot of this applies to business. It's like, for instance, if you're playing a sport, a lot of times, even in youth, the goal is to win. Of course, we always say, hey, we're here to have fun and work out and do all that, which is true. But there's an end goal of winning. And people know what that looks like. It's the scoreboard, right? So people can orient to that. The kids can orient to that. The parents, the fans, the other coaches, the referees, the entire community. A business is no different. But if you don't know how to keep score and you don't know what the goal is, like what is winning when we're trying to do this, So it starts with that. And that's not easy. It's easy to do in sports, but it's not in a business because sometimes even the owners don't know what winning is. You mentioned exiting a business. Maybe the win is an exit. Maybe the win is to grow it and to pass it on to some other folks in the organization or family or whatever. So some of the things that I take from coaching and apply to business is that, let's come up with a direction. Let's come up with what winning now looks like, or maybe it's a short-term win. Like in hockey, we often say, you got to win your small battles. You're out there for a minute and a half and you got to win that shift.
Yep.
And then if you win every shift, you'll win the period. And if you win the period, you do that 2 other times, you'll win the game. So it's the same thing in business. To me, if we establish what the goal for the year, the month, the quarter, whatever that is, we're going to have a lot better chance of actually getting there. And then we can orient the team and build the team to produce that. So back to the coaching, it's like if you look at a team and you say, we're a little bit weak in defense. Well, there's things we can do to compensate for that. It's the same thing in business. So you don't have to have all A players. Of course, it helps. It makes it a little easier from standing on the bench or being in an executive position, but it's also not common to be able to produce that. So then, you come up with strategies to cover the gaps. And again, it's, to me, when I sit through these coaching seminars, sometimes they're an 8-hour meeting on a Saturday. I'm just taking notes and it's like, well, this is for the sports journal and this is for business, so it's just a lot of fun.
And you played hockey growing up?
I did. I played since I was about 5 or 6 and I still play. So I love it.
Did you play for college and through college as well?
No, I've played my entire life, but in college, I was never that gifted to play in college. So,
and where did you grow up? Here in the Valley?
I grew up in greater Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
So
where there's actual snow.
Yeah, sure.
And ice rinks.
It's cold enough.
Although we've got a pretty cool, obviously you're well dialed into our hockey community here.
Yeah, we have
It's
a great
huge.
community. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not affiliated with it, but I have a lot of friends that I grew up with here in Tempe that their kids are playing and they played and fantastic. Now you're kind of an athlete as well. Tell us.
Well, yeah, playing.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, playing sports for me have really, has helped me kind of just, grow up in many different ways. And I think we learn from our experiences with sports. I grew up here in Phoenix and played at the Salvation Army. That's when I started with a program that was developed by a Nigerian guy named Peter Dua, who ended up becoming a professional coach here as well. But he brought the program together and he focused on people. So he focused on, okay, who are my coaches going to be? And so he he recruited the PE teachers from the elementary schools in South Phoenix, and he made them the coaches. Well, they were all retired military. And so we were the fittest, strongest. We could do jumping jacks and we could do all these things in cadence. And it was a really great experience, going through that. And so that kind of, I think, started the process with me to say, okay, it's about people. It's about the process that you go through together to get to a certain outcome. And so coaching for me, I ended up trying out for the Olympic development team when I was 13 here in Phoenix. It's $50 to register at the time. And I made the team, the state team, and went to regional camp and was recruited for Santa Clara University at 13 at that age. So it was really an exposure to state and then local region and then national, and played at Santa Clara and started coaching at Santa Clara, really coaching in the Olympic development program and the Nike soccer camps that we had over the summers. And I could see the kids get better each year, and I could see kind of the influence of a coach on a player. And played a little bit of pro soccer out of the Bay Area, and but continued coaching throughout the whole time. And more recently, have been coaching Olympic development in Arizona. We're on for this year, so it was canceled
Yay.
last year, but it's on for this year. So excited, and I learned from other coaches. And so when Jason and I met about teams and how when we go into an organization, it's very similar to a sports team, and you start to kind of evaluate the different players that are in the formation that they're in today, right? So soccer, we have a 4-3-3, so 4 defenders, 3 midfielders, 3 forwards. Well, you might have the formation, but are they playing together in the same system? Right. So you think about formation. Oh, we've got all the players. We've got our number 9 and our number 2 and our number 3. But are they connecting, right? And that's where Jason and I, as we started to talk through some of the situations we've been in, it's really connecting the players together to perform in the system and then evaluate it, right? Pretty quickly, evaluate how those interactions are going and help to coach them through better interactions over time. And, I think, we see companies evolve so quickly. Well, they're able to evolve more quickly if they're aligned to the same system, if they're aligned in their system.
I would think not only more quickly, but more enthusiastically.
Yes.
Because to your point earlier, it's very clear where they're going.
Right.
And the steps to get there. So when you have clarity and you have unity, it's exciting.
Right. And you mentioned a point about getting the players aligned and developing the players. And that's the same thing with a work team. A coach can't win a game. I'm standing on the bench. Nothing I can do can produce a win or produce the development situation for the teams. And I think that philosophy is lost on some executives, where somehow they believe they can will the win. And it's like you have to harness the power of the team. You have to create, like Derek said, those connections and see where there's some breakdown in communications and where someone's just a little out of position, and just a slight nudge will produce a lot better situation for them. It's like, hey, you're just always, a little bit too far outside. And if you just, move in, and it's those simple adjustments. I see it happen in a matter of minutes out on the ice. And then I think, I'm in a situation at work and I'm thinking, wow, this is a similar thing. Like I told that defender just to line up with his right shoulder with the opponent's left shoulder, and it changed it for him.
Mm-hmm.
What is this equivalent to that I can do with this, this project manager, this client services advocate, or this technician to help him or her move their sort of shoulder into the right lane, and it will, within hours produce a whole different way of approaching their job. And it's fun to sort of try to work through that and discover that with them, because usually it involves me getting on the phone or having a meeting with them and saying like, hey, that didn't go exactly the way we had it planned out, but how could let's think about that. Let's strategize on how we can make that a little better. And a tiny little correction can make a huge difference in that person's, it could be that day, their career path, their entire life, and it's really fun to see those connections, just like in sports when you see that kid's light bulb go off.
And you see how Jason described that scenario, right?
Yes.
We both connected over the fact that this has been a guided discovery for us. Like we were those coaches, those types of coaches 5 or 7 years ago that were using that coaching curriculum that was not a guided discovery curriculum. It was a matrix. You look at me, I'm your coach. You do as I say, those kinds of things. And so we connected over the fact that both of the hockey curriculum and the U.S. soccer curriculum has changed to a guided discovery approach with players, to really be player-centric versus coach-centric. That's a big thing for us from a coaching perspective. But as you start to apply it, like Jason just did, to a business, it really starts to help people make their individual decisions in ways that best fit them as people. You get more out of an executive or out of the development team if you bring them along in the decision-making process versus, this is the way we have to do it, and this is the way we've always done it, right? So bringing that creativity through guided discovery and coaching has really been a metamorphosis, I think, for us as coaches and youth, but also been something that we're able to apply to business. So you'll hear Joe talk about, outcomes over audits and people over process. And so that becomes the mantra, and those kinds of things just fit right into the value proposition of a company's ability to change, right? To be able to change quickly. Oh, we did it this way, but now we have to adapt and do it the next way. Oh, but I'm along for the ride. So I'm not going to worry about people moving my cheese or doing those kinds of things because I'm a part of the team, right?
Right.
How long have you owned and operated this business? Fairly new, or you've been at it for a while?
About 1.5 years, right in the beginning of 2020, a great time to jump off of a executive role and start my own business. But I mean, having said that, I was pretty confident in how,
I
already had the conversation. It wasn't like a long time ago, I left an engineering career to open a Subway in Peoria, Arizona. That was not this kind of a leap.
Right.
So you've been at this iteration of your life, your professional life, for about 1.5 years. What have you found? You knew going into it how you wanted Outcomes COO to be different, and now you're this much further along into the game. What is the feedback that you're getting about how different you are, and really what is the place that you hold? I know we've already touched on a little bit of it, but what else would you add to that? What makes you unique?
Okay, yeah. So our biggest unique is the fractional world is opening up. That's not really unique anymore. There's quite a few fractional executives, CFOs, CMOs, COOs. What I discovered is, having been in the role for years, is it can only be fractional if it's first of all really focused. Through my career, I realized I oftentimes sat in several different seats. So it's like, if I'm going to be a fractional COO, I really have to just be the COO. I can't be the director of HR and the head of marketing and all these other roles. In order to deliver the product that I want and that our clients and businesses need, I really need to really embrace and really know what that COO is, what the boundaries of it are, and adhere to those. With that said, I also know that that's not a role that can happen from 9 till noon, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or, all day on Monday and Thursday or something like that. So the unique thing about us is we say that we are 100% of the COO that your business needs. So when we go and we start working with owners and the companies that I work with, it's a slight evaluation of like, what really do you need? And they're like, well, the director of operations we used to have also did like new employee onboarding and stuff like that. Like, well, okay, that we're going to do a little something different there. We got to get creative here because really we need to dial this in. But then I need to figure out a way to be able to deliver that all day, every day.
Yep.
So I quickly made the decision not to have, I've talked to several other fractionals during my startup, and they're saying they have 3, 4, 5, 6 clients. And I thought, that's not the way I can operate. I knew how deep I want to get into businesses and how much help I want to offer. So it's a smaller roster, but a much more hands-on. And the things that I've heard And more importantly, the things that I've seen are really good when the owners of those businesses can take a week vacation that they've never taken before, or they can, pick up their children from school. And they're, that's what I really, really love about it is I'm really helping them out. And then the same thing is the teams and the employees are happier. I mean, I install some software that we can evaluate and help understand the sentiment of the team. And I literally have, seen that just totally take off, and it's like, it doesn't come off as oversight and micromanaging. It's actually opening up autonomy for people and saying, hey, I delegate that to you. You got it. You're totally capable. And if you're not, let's coach you up and make sure you are. So that's the unique part of our business is instead of it being a little bit more like I come in, I prescribe this is what we do. This is how Monday's going to go. This is how Wednesday's going to go. It's like, every day is different in a small business.
And you've got
I
me.
have to do that.
Yeah.
Outside some of the, things that you're seeing and obviously giving people time back and things like that, what are, if I was somebody like thinking about having a fractional COO help me out, what are some of the things that you've found have been really some of the roadblocks that people have had? Like if I'm a COO, I want to bring somebody in, what are some of the roadblocks, some of the things that I would consider to bring you in for?
Right. That's a great question. I think one of the first ones is, so I'll go back to, I do like to work with companies that run on EOS. So usually I'm working with people that are self-prescribed visionaries. So they really know what they're good at and what they're not great at. So the first thing we'll do is kind of, they'll say, I review the numbers or I look at the books or I get involved here and I get involved there, but I don't like it. So that's the start, right? They tell me right away what they don't like to do.
They know it's important,
right?
But they don't want to be the one to do it.
Yeah, right. So, I would make sure there's alignment there. And then the other big one is that they really want to let go. They're at a place where they want to let go of some of those roles. So once I, talk through that with them and we meet with them and we discuss that, and then we start to look at our company's called Outcomes COO. So we start to look at outcomes and we actually map out those outcomes. I map those out with, if you were the visionary for a company I was working with, I would say, Derek, what do you want to produce in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? We're going to map those out. And then we're going to make sure that we achieve those and we measure against them. And, sometimes they're KPI related. Other times it's just like an outcome. Like I would like to not be on that particular call anymore. Okay, great. In 60 days, we'll make sure you're not involved in that thing anymore. And here's how we're going to get there. So it's again, kind of focused on, are you ready? Are you really ready to let go? What is it that you most want to let go of? And then, because that's going to actually empower you to go do what you really want to do and what you're great at. And then let's put together a little roadmap that's outcomes focused. Right. And that's how I go through it with the visionaries that I work with.
Yeah. And it's so great. Like you bring that EOS capability. For those that maybe don't know about EOS and really those roles, you've got the visionary, you've got the integrator, and you've got the operations. Could you explain a little bit about how important those roles are to companies?
Sure. Yeah. A lot of companies, small businesses start with someone that has a vision. And it, it doesn't have to be grandiose as like Elon Musk, we're going to Mars. It can be like, I'm going to create a better landscaping company or a painting company that the vision is that it takes care of my family and it gives me a certain amount of fulfillment and autonomy. But it's lay out that vision. So they set out the vision. And then the integrator is basically the operations person, the COO, that would go and say, all right, you've created the vision. You're really brilliant at that, but you can't paint every house, so we need an operation to do that. And that's not what they sometimes are great at, or they have a great situation where their business grows so fast and so big that they can't do it all. So that's where it's like the next person down is that right-hand man, the COO or the integrator in EOS terms. And they're really accountable to the operation, making sure that everything is getting done. Sort of I think the quote is the trains are running on time, that is in the book. And then after that, it's a pretty standard organization. There's sales and operations and whatever your service delivery might be or product delivery. So it's a matter of making sure that the visionary or CEO, it's usually the owner, is setting the vision, charting the course, plotting the direction, and then the operations person or integrator is the one, sort of getting it all in order and making it happen.
Yeah, that's great.
Fascinating. So talk about project management and where that fits in, because you spoke when we first came on air about just the neat synergy between both organizations and both companies. Not that you will always work with the same clients, but talk a little bit about the project management, the delivery piece of this.
Yeah, many times what we're finding and really out there now as projects are starting to be executed, right? That you have the vision, some sort of vision out there, but you're really trying to get project consistency, right? And project outcomes that are consistent within an organization. And so what's really important, or what's really great about an EOS topper, right, at the top, is that you're getting that alignment early on, and you're getting that alignment from business to project. And project delivery, again, with a lot of organizations, you're at a certain maturity level. So are you, at a level where your project managers are following consistent practices? Are those practices ones that lead into proper outcomes? Those are some of the questions that we ask. What is your budget for project management? I mean, some companies have trouble articulating what their budget is for project management. Is it the labor? Is it the tools? Is it what are those things? So kind of highlighting those things are very important as you get down into the execution phase. So having the visionary, the integrator, and a PMO, a strong project delivery organization, allows companies to shift gears very quickly. And so what we've found is that companies will say, oh, we're focusing on these specific revenue streams, and they're tied to some of the business outcomes. Well, what projects are actually helping you to achieve those work streams and to bolster up those work streams? And so project delivery for the PMO squad really looks at what those capabilities are, and then provides a framework to support it. So we take PMO and we rebrand it from a program, project, or portfolio management organization to purpose, measure, and optimize, where we focus first on the purpose. So it really feeds into EOS. Those outcomes become the work streams. We look at the purpose behind those, and if they're measured, it's perfect. And then we look at an optimization playbook. So for those out there that are, looking at their resource management, resource utilization, what vendors am I using, all these different kinds of things that relate to the optimization of your organization, we put together that playbook, and that's our O and PMO.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
Awesome.
helpful. Yeah. Industry. Are you industry agnostic? Is there a certain size of company? Like, how do you define who's a good company to work with you? I mean, we already established, someone who really is a visionary and may likely get the EOS system and or has that in their blood. But what else around that would be a good fit for you?
Yeah. So for me personally, I have a lot of experience with that growth phase, or kind of a hyper growth phase. So it might not be 1,000% or something like that, but where it's going to be extraordinary for the previous several periods. So maybe it's a 10-year-old company that has worked their way up to several $1 million in revenue, but now they want to triple that in the next 5 years. Well, that's going to take scalability. That's going to take a lot of operational excellence and things like that. So I don't have any specific industries or verticals. Obviously, as we work with other COOs that we're bringing into outcomes, we're looking at people that do have industry experience. That's really helpful, of course. But the biggest thing is it's really the focus on the business. It's financially driven. We're looking at all those KPIs, metrics, the teams, the way that things are organized now, and the way that they might have to be organized differently to achieve the vision or those big longer term outcomes. So, when I look at it, and most of the conversations I've had with folks that are really ambitious and after it, they would rather see someone that they're considering bringing onto their team in a role like mine have the experience of doing that not so much the experience with the business.
But they don't know that when they go looking.
Right.
Right? Which is why it would be helpful to bring those COOs that have that experience, because ultimately it's really the way in which you execute and direct and work with people.
Absolutely.
My mind is reeling around all of this because there's so many companies I know that I can introduce you to. In fact, Bob Bloom is a client of mine. He used to be the CFO for the Max 6, the building and the company that my studio is located in. And he's just recently started kind of a fractional CFO company on his own. And we're having these conversations, and I think just be a great introduction for the two of you. Are you looking at adding more COOs right now?
Yes.
At this stage of the game? And so talk a little bit about, you already mentioned that, they likely would have some experience in specific industries just to kind of help shape everything. But who are you looking for? Like if somebody's listening, they're like, oh my gosh, this really speaks to me. I'd love to, show up and become part of this team. Who is that person?
So it wouldn't be critical or a showstopper if you weren't involved or had some knowledge of EOS, but that's a huge start. So I'm involved with several different integrator communities, which again is the COO in the EOS world. And the nice thing is with EOS companies is we're already speaking a lot of the same language. So if someone out there is working within an EOS company that is a project manager, operations director, or something like that, and they're looking for that next opportunity, those would be like a really great candidate for us because we're looking for that level of experience. So if you're already an integrator, awesome. Maybe we can get you more in that lane of just doing integration, because through several of the communities that I'm in, I hear about the integrator that's, doing 5 other things. And they're just like, I love it when I'm just doing my integrator stuff, but I get pulled into these other things.
And you spoke to that earlier about having to make that decision.
Right.
This is my lane. I can do those other things, but I'm not going to.
Right. And that's, if those are the folks we're looking for, so it's like, I really embrace the integrator role when I read it in the books and get in the communities. That's really what I'm great at. And also that most likely means they're really good at identifying what they're not great at and how to delegate that out and to do it in a fiscally responsible way. It's not like I go into a company and say, well, we're going to have to hire like 15 people because, we need an HR this and a marketing that. And that's not the case. It's like, let's get creative here. You're hiring me for 15 hours a week approximately. Let's go get 2 hours of social media support. Let's go get a fractional CFO, as you mentioned, to help with our bookkeeping and monitoring that stuff. And next thing you know, you put it all together. It's like, wow, we've got everybody doing what they're passionate about, what they're really terrific at. And guess what then happens? We can actually achieve the goals and scale the way that you wanted to and take your business from 3 million to 10 million in 5 years.
And again, it's based on outcomes and the vision and the goals and the purpose, right? That's the baseline, the foundation for that. It's feeling like a very different model to what we would traditionally think of when somebody opens a business, where they think, all right, I got to have all the players on the team. I got to right away hire this, and this, and this. But if the revenue isn't there, and the traction really, both client wise and just the mission and the vision, then they sometimes are having too much expenditures outside of what they're doing. So that's part of what you're helping to monitor is how this is all flowing. And I also I keep thinking of like this accordion, right? Like the Max 6 facility. This is co-work space and also just executive lease space. But part of why Max 6 has designed the campus the way they have is that they understand businesses are going to hit points of great growth. And then sometimes, like this thing called COVID and the pandemic, outside of our control, or sometimes, oops, this happened, I lost this big client or whatever, we change our direction, we have to kind of pull that accordion back in. And so I think that sounds like the beauty of not only understanding the EOS system, but also the work that you do at COO Outcome. I said that right? Outcomes COO. I knew that. I got that backwards. That you understand that it's not set in stone. There's this flow. It's an organism. It's a living organism, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think of it as like an elastic workforce, and sometimes that can be taken the wrong way, like, oh, you can just cut people's hours and stuff. And generally, in the businesses I'm in, it's elastic going bigger, So we mentioned my work with the PMO squad, within a few, I think it was a month or two, I was asking for more. It was like,
Yeah.
we need more of this. Like, this is so great. And that's been more of the situations I've been in where it's like, hey, we know we talked about 2 hours a week, but can that turn into 3 or 4? And that's really great because you're growing it with the business, and it's much more stable, much more in control. One of the roles of the integrator, according to the way the book is written and the way you're supposed to embrace it, is the integrator is accountable to the P&L. So instead of the CEO or how it would be otherwise, it's the integrator. So it's like, in my roles, I have to make sure that, we have, okay, we're going to hire that salesperson to produce more revenue. And then we're going to have to go hire the team that's going to have to fulfill on that revenue. And sometimes it can't be full time. It doesn't justify that. So that's where the fractional, and it could be contract to hire. It could be, a certain level of expertise that we may not need long term, but right now for this particular project or endeavor or client, we need a videographer or something like that. And the gig economy really feeds into this and helps us all out as fractionals, because you can create a very efficient workforce. And that's great for everybody, because nobody wants to have a team of people sitting on their hands, underutilized. Those team members aren't growing. Back to the coaching, it's development. Well, we're not developing people if we have them sitting there, saying, you don't look too busy as a graphic designer. So how about if you write some email copy for us? It's like, that's not really helping them out. So,
and Jason makes it sound so simple, right? And what we really connected over is that he's able to come in and really show the value, because you're tied to the P&L. What's the value of having this resource do these things for us? And that's really where I think the power of Outcomes COO and the entrepreneurial operating system come into play, is like, we have time right now, and this is what the time is worth for a PM to come in, and this is the value we're going to get out of it. And so having that mindset and setting that up early, you're not just doing projects just to do projects. They're tied to something tangible, right? Something measurable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What else can you tell us about where you're headed? Like, you're the visionary, as well as obviously, out there doing the work as well. But what can you tell us a little bit about when you think about where you'd like to be, even say in 5 years? What do you see for your company?
So I would, in a perfect world, we're going to grow adding about 2 new integrators per year. Those 2 integrators, if we can match them up right, would be supporting 2 companies like me. So if we can grow like that in the next 10 years, we would have 20 integrators working together. We would be able to produce a really highly valued offer in the market, because we'll be working together as fractional integrators to have our own community to say, this is working really well, or I'm up against this. We'll probably create our own little best practices that will be exclusive to producing those outcomes and producing them rapidly. But really what that will be able to do is help 40 small businesses. And if we think of every small business as maybe having 20 or so people, those 20 people have probably a family of 3 or 4 people. So, we can impact thousands of families and thousands of people by helping every one of them, from the owner down to the entry level employee, all get the best out of their career and then produce the best outcomes for their own families and really what they're after.
Another great parallel to the way I watch Joe work and how he's built the PMO squad. Like, there's so many similarities there. It's really neat to hear that. Yeah. And how about the PMO squad? Can you speak a little bit to what you guys are up to right now? And
over the next 5 years, we're really building our alliances with different organizations that kind of parallel in the project management space. So tool providers, we're building out our the PMO leader, which is our marketplace. And it's really a community marketplace. And as Jason was saying, building a community around project and program management, which includes obviously the COO level and the CEO level. We just hired a new sales executive who's going to start in July. So we like to think about, obviously getting our name out there and creating awareness, but we also want to do it in in kind of an advisory capacity. So we're kind of changing over the time the way that we put ourselves out there in the marketplace. And then we hired a marketing analyst who's going to start with us actually in the next couple of weeks. So we're excited to have Lauren Jenny.
A new graduate. Whoop, whoop.
Yep, new graduate and, liaison for the Women in Agile podcast.
Yep.
So we're so excited to have her join us. Along with Joe and myself, we have a leader out in Austin. His name is Jerome McDonald. He's our operations director, and he's looking to expand in operations as well. So as we grow, and so from a capacity perspective, we're planning on it looks like what we're going to probably do is double in size each year.
Mm-hmm.
So that includes, program project management resources coming in, but also, a staff that can help support what we're doing. So very excited about the coming years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah.
What have I not thought to ask that either of you kind of, driving here today, like, I really need to make this point? Is there something that either around clients or the structure of your business or where you're headed that you want, it's worth mentioning? Anything we haven't covered?
I would just go back to, from my experience getting on the phone with a lot of different people that are in that EOS community, visionaries looking to take that next step, I would just encourage them to do it. If you're a visionary out there and you know that you've got something really great and you're just kind of a little bit stuck, take a couple steps toward that goal. Interview a COO or a fractional COO if you don't think it can be a full-time role. Get out there, talk to people. There's a lot more EOS going on in the world every day. I think next year they're going to have 2 conferences, one in Orlando and one in London, actually. They just wrote the book in Japanese, so it's moving over to Asia. So EOS is out there. There's a ton of people doing it. If you're a visionary and you're falling into that spot of like, man, I think I'm ready to go. I've read the book. I've got things kind of going. Take that next step and go out there and talk to some integrators, because I can speak from my own experience that I've enabled 2 visionaries to really experience what they've wanted to experience in the last year and what they've been desiring for a long time. And it's a really fulfilling feeling for me, and I know it is for them as well.
Yeah.
I would love to invite you and those 2 leaders to come back and do another, like a part 2. If you're okay with that, if they'd be willing to. I think that's a really important conversation in addition to the conversation we've had today, because then they can speak from that experience. Like, what was it to really strap on and say, like, let's do this, help me do this.
Yeah.
So if you're open to that, I would love that.
Sure.
You can come too.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Have the conversation. It's so important. I would echo what Jason said. Have the conversation.
How does that conversation start? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
With you and then with PMO Squad too, like, where does somebody start? And I hear you saying just generally, it doesn't have to be with you. Like you're saying, this is just an open invitation to go get that off your chest and figure it out. But if they want to, after listening today, work with you specifically, how does that start?
Sure. If you're at a spot where you really think you're ready for Integrator, you've been maybe running EOS for a little while, I would just literally Google it in your area. I know I'm involved in enough of the communities out there to know that they're nationwide. So Googling fractional COO or fractional Integrator will probably get you some results.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not quite there yet, like maybe you picked up the book, you're interested in it, you're not sure, there's a small distinction between the word implementer and integrator. Mm-hmm. And the implementer is basically the one to say, hey, we can help you get this whole thing up and running. And then they will oftentimes also help you identify a COO or an integrator that might be valuable. So if you're early stage, maybe find an implementer. They'll come in. They'll give you a lot of great coaching. They'll point you in the right direction. If you're already past that point, then I would say just go out and start looking for an integrator. And hopefully, some other folks in your network that are running EOS. I would leverage those, ask those people, because they probably know it. But we're out there and we're relatively easy to find, I think.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, for us, from a project management or project delivery perspective, I think if you ask yourself, are my projects going well and could they be better? Or are they failing and I need to rescue them? And then ask yourself 3 questions. One is, how much am I spending on project management? Do I know that? Do I know what I'm spending today? And is there alignment across the business that there's a need? And then the second question is, how do I measure, right, my projects, right? Am I measuring them today? And then how do I remain relevant if I'm the person delivering projects? So maybe I'm the CEO, but I'm still responsible for delivering the projects, or all the way down. So those three questions, I think, for me, if you ask those questions of yourself and you're not able to answer them, have a conversation, right? Call us up. We'd love to just have the conversation, talk to you a little bit about the answers to those questions and how you can kind of right the ship.
Excellent.
Can I add one more thing to your qualifier there?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would say if you have a business that's doing a few $1 million in revenue and have 15 to 20 employees or more, and you don't think you have projects, call you.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
Because
that's big.
by that size, there's internal projects that are necessary just to keep everything efficient. So that's another thing that I see is like I'm talking to these companies, and sometimes I know it's not right for me yet, but I'm like, you would benefit right now from a PM or a fractional PM, because whether you know it or not, there's projects that need to be done that maybe we're not at the maturity stage for a COO yet, but internally you've got to get some efficiency and you've got to get some of those things going. So that's another thing I notice is people are like, well, I'm doing fine. I have 20 employees. We're making $4 million. I get into a conversation. I'm like, well, how do you manage your projects and stuff? Well, we don't have a project manager. I was like,
Yeah.
All right.
You need one.
You need one. You need one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
That might be more important even than a COO at that stage.
Yeah. I keep hearing some words. We haven't said them necessarily, but they're running through my mind. You're helping business owners run a lean operation, and it's done with rigor. I just throughout this whole conversation, I'm like, this is and I mean that word rigor or rigorous in a really like loving way. This is really around clarity of purpose and vision and delivery with intentionality. And we spoke to it early on in our conversation, loving on the people, acknowledging where their skill set is and having them stand in that brilliance, right? Getting the right, as EOS, I think it's an EOS saying, getting the right people on the bus in the right seats.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And like this radio show is a great example of a ability to communicate, right? Is an ability to make that vision something that you can communicate across your teams in a way that invigorates them, makes them feel comfortable. So that communication is key, right?
It is everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's my little wheelhouse right there. Yes, I hope. Although today I flubbed up a couple of times, like, I can't remember what I was going to say. But here we are. They let me on air anyway.
Absolutely.
No one has a choice to kick me off because it's my business. All right. So how do people get in touch with you? Give us the website. And can we find you on LinkedIn?
Sure. LinkedIn, just search for Jason Prentice. We do have a website. It's Outcomes COO.com. Those are probably the two easiest ways to get a hold of me, and I'd be happy to help in any way that I can.
I can sense that I truly like a giver. That's what I love so much about the people that run in Joe's circle, where I will include myself in that company. It's, as you pointed out, you had said it. If you are not where you need me yet, let's have a conversation. I might find that out, and I'm going to say to you, let's go do, talk to Derek, talk to Joe, talk to so-and-so, and come back to me when you're ready for this piece.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Success is not finite. It's not a zero-sum game. So we
And
can all be it.
Yeah.
There's enough room for all of us.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say yesterday morning, I had a call into our website off our 800 number,
Joe told me.
which comes directly to me.
Yeah.
And it is somebody looking for an EOS integrator. I haven't even told Jason yet. It's happened so quickly.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that network, that community, like Jason said, just reach out for the PMO squad, thepmosquad.com. If you're interested in a project management marketplace where you can listen to podcasts, you can read books, you can look at blogs for people in the project management space, go to thepmoleader.com. And then for me is derek.brownell at thepmosquad.com.
Also on LinkedIn.
Also on LinkedIn.
I do believe I'm on there, but I'm not very good about paying attention to that. I got too many things going on. I keep saying to Joe, as soon as I get this employee on board, we need to have a conversation about managing my projects. And I'm just this big, but my goal is
Sure.
eventually multiple studios, and I'm standing in my own way. I'm very aware of that.
Yeah.
So it's been a pleasure to meet you and to hear about what you're up to, and I want to thank you so much for your time.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sincere about coming back and
Absolutely.
having these other folks that have benefited from your gifts to be able to come and tell that story if they're willing. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, Karen, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jason, for telling your story.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you both.
And I know I'll have you back again, too. That's just a given.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from Tempe, Arizona, right here at the Max 6 Entrepreneur Center. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Nowicki. Thanks for listening.